family or getting out of town in the warmth at the end of May might be a pleasant respite. KBNU time is 4:05. KBNU weather, we do have some showers to deal with, but it looks like the big day is tomorrow. Slight chance of showers and thunderstorms this evening, partly cloudy after midnight, mid-40s. Chance of showers in the morning, but the best chance, 80% chance of rain showers and a few thunderstorms in the afternoon. On Saturday, partly sunny, around 70 for the high. 30% chance of showers and storms Saturday night, and a 40% chance on Sunday. And then by Memorial Day Monday, upper 70s, and there is a 30% chance of rain. It's been to 74. It's 70 right now at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by U&I Furniture. If warm summer nights make it hard for you to sleep, check out the copper-infused gel memory foam mattress at U&I. You'll sleep cooler and more comfortable. Always a better buy at U&I, downtown Logan, 28 West, 1st North.
This is David from Roof Rescue. This past winter in Cache Valley was the worst in recent memory, reminding us of the sheer power of Mother Nature. Snow, ice dams, and record low temperatures left behind a trail of leaks, broken gutters, and damaged roofs. Let's get those issues inspected and addressed so that when next winter comes around, you can focus your attention on your family, the holidays, and winter activities instead of leaks, drips, and ice dams. Call today for your complimentary inspection at 435-999-4268 or visit us at roofrescueusa.com. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
KBNU News Time, 4:06. After nearly 50 years of thriving under the guidance of Utah State University, the Summer Citizens Program is set to embark on a new chapter, finding its new home with the Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce starting in 2024. Amy Rasmussen, Associate Director of USU's Catering and Event Services, expressed her enthusiasm about the growth and evolution of the Summer Citizens Program. While Utah State will continue to provide the educational aspects of the program, the day-to-day responsibilities such as registration and community event coordination will be overseen by the Cache Valley Chamber team to ensure a seamless transition and create future opportunities for local businesses to support the summer citizens. The Chamber has been working closely with the Cache Valley Visitors Bureau, arts organizations, city and county leaders, and downtown business representatives. Jamie Andrus, president and CEO of the Chamber, emphasized the importance of leveraging existing relationships with these key entities to further enhance the success of the program. Andrus predicted that the new arrangement would enable the Cache community to provide increased support for summer citizens, as well as exceptional lifelong learning opportunities offered by USU. Since the mid-1970s, about 800 retired senior citizens from Arizona, California, and Texas have flocked to Cache Valley each summer, drawn by its cooler temperatures, week-long enrichment classes held at USU, and the opportunity to experience Logan's professional performing arts programs and community events. The summer citizens, along with other tourists who come for Cache Valley's recreational events and outdoor activities, have made significant contributions to the local economy, amounting to millions of dollars. The official transition of the Summer Citizens Program to the Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce will take place in August. Mortgage rates are rising again, crossing 7% this week and continuing to climb. Dejan Eskick, housing analyst at the Kem C. Gardner Policy Institute, told KUTV that the spike is a result from the debt ceiling standoff in Washington, D.C. The spike comes in the middle of the spring buying season, and depending how long the gridlock of D.C. goes on, mortgage rates will directly respond to what they do, Eskick said. Until that debate is settled, it's making it much more expensive to buy a house. It also equates to several $100s more in monthly payments for a typical home buyer. KBNU News Time is 4:09. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
610 AM and 102.1 FM. News Talk KVNU.
This is Jess Bradfield, Cache County Clerk Auditor. Serving the public and overseeing elections has been one of the most memorable experiences of my life. It has been my goal as the Director of County Elections to ensure that all feel confident in the integrity of our election process. In less than 3 years, we have constructed a secure ballot processing center, purchased state-of-the-art processing equipment, and Cache County was awarded a spot as a National Center of Election Excellence and recognized for outstanding use of grant funding in elections modernization by the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. On behalf of the Clerk Auditor's Office, as we look to upcoming elections, know that your vote is protected, local elections are secure, and Cache County is committed to maintaining its status among the best election offices in the nation.
Hey, John Weiss here. At Heritage Ford in Tremont, we're your hometown dealer with the biggest deals. What does that mean? It means you're going to get the best deal right here at home on every Ford. You'll get hometown service and better pricing than you'll see in any big city. That's why we created the Heritage ePrice experience. Check the price so that you can be sure you're getting the hometown deal. Come in and see your friends at Heritage Ford in Tremont. Get started at heritageeprice.com.
I've got a math question for you. When you add tolerance, subtract prejudice, and multiply efforts to treat one another with respect, what do you get? Less division. And school sports have it down to a science. Looking for an example of what can happen when we realize there's more that unites us than divides us? Look no further than high school sports in Utah.
This message presented by the Utah High School Activities Association and the Utah Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. Friday, May 26th. Thank you for joining us today. For the People movie show coming up at 5 with Andy Morgan here in the studio. Plenty to talk about. A few new films in theaters, but not here in Cache Valley. Just here in Utah. If you want to make the trek to Ogden or Salt Lake, you can see a couple of these. One new here in Cache Valley, and you can still get out and see the latest Marvel offering, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Finally saw that myself. It was, a good way to close out the trilogy. Although Star-Lord, the main character, is promised to be back in future Marvel movies. The Guardians of the Galaxy group themselves, this is their final film. So you can also still see Dungeons and Dragons here in Cache Valley. And if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. I was surprised. I have almost an allergy to Dungeons and Dragons, being of the age group where that got. I was a little too young when it hit its first real rise of popularity. Right after the E.T. movie came out, that was kind
was
of.
Was that when it was?
Yeah, that was. It had been growing in popularity, but then E.T. came out and kind of made it a household name, the game, and then it just took off at that point. And
so from the early 80s, I guess, basically,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was, so it's, it kind of became a thing, and a lot of my friends were into it in middle school, and I dabbled with it, and it just wasn't for me, and it was such a commitment, and they would play, the game would go on for weeks, and each time that my friends would play, it would be like 8 hours, and just a whole Saturday, and just not for me, and even then I was more of a go outside and look at trees person. So all things Dungeons and Dragons, what I'm trying to say, usually I roll my eyes out. I'm like, man, I'm glad they're there for the super fans, and they're fun for them, I'm sure. But this one surprised me. It was a really fun movie, and still probably the most fun I've had seeing a movie so far this year. There's been a lot of good stuff. It's not to say there isn't, but I probably enjoyed sitting through that 2 hours than more so than any other. So that is still here in Cache Valley if you'd like to check it out. I wanted to get to something here on the show today that ties in with the recent slew of social media bills around the country and two here in Utah. And it's an article written by a person who was right there in the heyday of it all. This was a game designer at Atari who has become kind of a tech pundit. You can read Michael Slavic's work at TechCrunch. He writes alongside a man named Alex Samuels, who also writes for the New York Times and 538. And Samuels is a data journalist there at 538 and the New York Times Upshot, mostly talking about elections and things like that. Michael Slavic is more of a tech culture columnist, but they teamed up on an article that throws some perspective on all of this, and I wanted to throw it out for our listeners to see where they're at, because I'm guessing a lot of our listeners are of an age that they remember this. And what it is there was in the 80s there was a video game scare. It was a single comment made by the Reagan Surgeon General in 1984, which ironically is the same time that the E.T. game came out and nearly sunk Atari. In fact, kind of started Atari on their downhill slope as a dominator of at-home gameplay through these video game consoles. It opened the door. Atari had just dominated. No one could really break in and beat them. And then they put that E.T. game out, and it completely lacked creativity. It was poorly designed. It was a huge commercial flop. And the door opened at that point to that Nintendo swooped in. There were others as well in television. Remember that? You remember playing Burger Time on Intellivision. A friend had it in the neighborhood. But, yeah, it was really when things started to change. And in the middle of all of this, the Surgeon General goes on a TV show and just casually offers a personal opinion, which he later apologized for and even himself said was an irresponsible thing to do. Because he should have, been more aware. Obviously, a Surgeon General is going to have opinions, just like it's silly to pretend journalists aren't human beings with opinions, all of them. It would be silly to assume the same of a Surgeon General. But since he was speaking about, advisories on this TV show in the mid-'80s that the CDC and the Surgeon General had put out, he was explaining them in an interview. In this interview, he just kind of offered an off-the-cuff opinion that he later apologized for and admitted was not based on anything he'd seen, any studies, any research. It was literally just his opinion. But speaking as a Surgeon General for the United States, it was reported on and consumed by the public as news, as an advisory from the United States Surgeon General. And what he said basically is that he thought video games were, I'm paraphrasing, but basically he said that video games were going to create an entire generation of super violent teens with learning disabilities. It was the first time we've heard this over and over and over about video games, about the internet at large, about social media. It never comes true. But it's something that always gets reacted to at first as if, some wise sage has just predicted the future. Again, the Surgeon General later apologized and said, look, this was just my opinion. I've seen no research or evidence that this is the case. I wasn't trying to say that. But what it did is it started this sort of bandwagon scare. And what it led to is something you're seeing again today play out in different ways with, the bandwagon around, of all things, banning drag shows and books. And it's the same sort of backlash movement, quote, unquote, that we've seen over and over and over again. And it's a backlash to things may be changing a little too fast, and that scares some people, and they worry about the future, and that's all a very reasonable thing to do. When it becomes unreasonable is they just find a target. eventually all this anxiety has to find a target. And some opportunist, usually is how it happens, picks a target for this large group of people, and it becomes a thing for a year or two, and then it fades, and then we all look back on it and think, what a silly time that was, over and over and over. But being able to recognize this in advance, I think, is how you stop this from happening. So back to the mid-'80s and how this relates to the social media bills today. The article, Michael Slavic writes at TechCrunch, and I've linked to it on our Facebook page, and he cites 2 states, Utah and Montana specifically. First, he goes after Montana. Montana banned TikTok, and this is being sold as a way to protect kids. But Slavic says you have to see through this and realize this was purely a political bandwagon. This was an anti-China thing, which is true. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be very critical and suspicious of TikTok. There are a lot of reasons for that. But the ban in Montana is going to head into court and be struck down on First Amendment lines. Everyone knows this. The lawmakers that passed it know this. But it allowed them to take a political stand. Many of them are up for re-election next year, and that's why this happens. So they'll lose in court, and TikTok won't, in the end, be banned in Montana, and that's the end of it. So Slavic writes about that. Then he turns to Utah, and he said Utah took a much more nuanced approach, a more responsible approach. Here in Utah, with these 2 bills passed in the legislative session earlier this year, we didn't ban anything. We did, though, Slavic points this out, and I've pointed it out here on the show as my opinion as well, we did adopt some of the things that we tried in the drug war that didn't work. In the social media bills here in Utah, there is a 10:30 curfew. That's arbitrary as all get out, and the lawmakers admitted to that. But a 10:30 curfew would be required. So, Instagram would not work here in Utah for someone under the age of 16 after 10:30. It just wouldn't load. It just, I don't know. There are big questions. One, is this even technically possible? And that hasn't been answered. 2, can a state mandate this type of thing? That would be decided by the courts, and it will be. But the point is that is an approach that we've tried with other things that haven't worked. So back to the mid-'80s and the video game scare centered around Atari. Pac-Man was a part of this. In-person arcade games were huge. Every mall in the United States and a lot of places other than malls had a booming industry located and drawing, teens, and the goal really was their parents, teens and their parents, kids and their parents, younger than teens, drawing them in with these arcades and the popularity of these video games. And then the parents would go spend money while the kids played and also spent money. So it was huge. And then the Surgeon General goes on TV and says, I think this is, paraphrasing again, but he basically says, I think this is going to produce an entire generation of violent, learning disability-plagued kids. He admits later he has no evidence to support this. It's just his opinion. In fact, the evidence, once he said this, people started doing research, and every study after study confirmed that there was no reason to believe this. The Surgeon General apologized, said I should have been more careful with my words, or at least declared that was just my personal opinion. But it didn't stop a couple of years of the same thing we're seeing now, which was states reacting to this and sometimes overreacting to this. And the danger here is that in the case of video games, there wasn't a real problem. With social media, there might be a real problem. Some of the data we've seen on teen suicide ideation, teen suicides, the effect Instagram has on teen and preteen young women. Some of this stuff has been studied, and the data is out there. The information is out there that shows there could be a serious problem here. Social media could be doing harm, and that could be something we could fix, and maybe easily. The problem, Slavic writes, with bills like what Utah has passed is that allows everyone to pat themselves on the back and say problem solved, but they don't know if they solved the problem. They may have actually exacerbated the problem, which is what we saw with all the states. In New York City, for example, video games were banned by the city council within New York City limits. The Surgeon General said this. The public freaked out. City council meetings were populated with large groups of people with signs screaming at city council members. I mean, does this all sound familiar? This just happened in St. George over the city permitting a drag show in a public park, an all-ages drag show. This exact same thing happened. So people were just up in arms, freaking out about this. And then the city council reacted. So they banned video games. The gaming industry sued. They won the suit. And then within a couple of years, studies started to come out showing, this was absolutely not necessary. We weren't solving a real problem. There were other problems we were ignoring because we were focusing on this problem instead. Everyone looked back and said, my, what a silly time. The laws were repealed and things went back to kind of where they were before. This is a pattern. It happens again and again and again. And really, I think the way to get out of these loops, to not waste time and taxpayer dollars, and worst of all, to in effect, just kick a can down a road when you do have a serious problem. Again, social media and some of the data you see, especially on how it might be affecting teens, is a serious question. It's a question that I give high praise to the legislature for recognizing the need to explore it. Where I think the legislature fell short, and where Slavic writes in this article at TechCrunch and along with Alex Samuels, the statistician, looking at some of the data we've seen around social media use and some of the studies on its potential effects, negative effects, Samuels and Slavic write, Utah deserves credit for recognizing a potential problem, but the mistake Utah has made is they have prescribed a solution with zero evidence. They've adopted many of the aspects of some of our failed campaigns during the drug war to prevent teen drug use. They've written it into 2023 policy, and they've patted themselves on the back and said other states should do the same. This is not solving a problem, Slavic writes. This is actually potentially creating an additional problem on top of the original problem you didn't solve. What do you think? Utah's laws, again, curfews. The most controversial aspect of the law is a proposed age verification system that would actually require, in state law, for the social media companies to keep a database of proof of identity and age, which could then be exposed to hacking. I mean, that one literally creates a new problem for children here in Utah and their parents. Is this something? I have two questions, I guess. Do you feel this is something the state should pursue as a parent with kids most likely using social media? Do you want the state to pursue this at all? And if so, do you feel like where the state is pointed with these social media bills, with these proposed solutions, are we pointed in the right direction? I want to hear from parents. 753-5868. We'll be back right after this.
Intermountain Budge ENT Clinic has an experienced and caring team of physicians and staff to assist you with all of your ear, nose, and throat concerns, including head and neck surgery. Doctors Kaiser and Wilson and their staff at Intermountain Budge ENT Clinic will work together to provide excellent care and support throughout the entire surgery process, from your pre-op visit to your full recovery. And they accept all insurance. For more information about Doctors Kaiser or Wilson, search Budge Clinic ENT or call 435-716-1420. Local care with Intermountain expertise.
Hello, this is Deputy Salanoa from the Cache County Sheriff's Office inviting you to join us for the annual Special Olympics Torch Run, Monday, June 5th from 6:30 to 7:30 at Merlin Olson Park. Come run with local first responders, Special Olympic athletes, and more. To participate, just purchase a Torch Run t-shirt. The link and more information can be found on Facebook by searching Cache County Special Olympics Torch Run. There will be a pizza party immediately after. Plan to join us Monday, June 5th from 6:30 to 7:30 at Merlin Olson Park for the annual Special Olympics Torch Run.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer.
In response to attacks against Asian Americans, Maddie Park raised over $250,000 to donate cab rides to the Asian community.
There is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
Support the Asian community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
You've heard it on the news. It's something to take seriously. I have posted some photos I took myself of parts of the river right in the downtown area almost, but also a bit up the canyon. Logan City officials yesterday announced closure of public access to Logan River and the banks. Now, obviously, Logan City can only enforce this within city limits, but they're encouraging people who have, I honestly can't, I assume this must have happened. That's an assumption on my part, but I assume that there have been kayakers based on what the city put out yesterday. Again, they don't say that specifically. That's my assumption, but that was one specific mention, is that they're telling people not to do this right now.
It might, I don't know. It might be preventative.
Yeah, they might just be getting ahead of it. But
thinking because that would draw a certain type of person. All that water and how fast it's going.
Yeah, fast-moving water. It's high enough that the rocks are way down there, but that's also a huge risk because they're not that far down there. So I mean, it's just I would be shocked if there had been. And again, that's my assumption. The city didn't say this, but Logan City, along with now Cache County and other parts of the state, has officially adopted an emergency declaration. And this is due entirely to the amount of water, the depth of the Logan River. The reason banks are included in this, in this state of emergency declaration, obviously, there's a lot of references to the threat of flooding along the Logan River and within city limits. This is effective as of yesterday when it was declared and signed as an executive order by Mayor Holly Daines. And Logan River hit its official flood stage on Wednesday. So the emergency declaration gives city officials some authority to request state funds, and like the county doing this as well, that's the primary reason for this. Anticipating flooding and the need for flood prevention and flood cleanup afterwards, it's costly. And so this opens up some state emergency funds, but you have to declare an emergency to get access to them. So the county and the city of Logan have both done this. I'm not sure if any other cities have. I did some checking today and couldn't find any evidence of that so far, but Logan City officially now joining the county in this. They are actually closing 6 South eastbound at 2000 West. That's due to flooding already. That's been happening for a little over 2 weeks now. Eastbound traffic detoured to 1800 South until further notice. And again, closing the Logan River and its banks within city limits to all recreational activities for the next 30 days. Now, the order can be rescinded earlier than that. The river hitting flood stage means it is either at or very near its peak, and that's a kind of a guessing game. The Blacksmith Fork River has peaked. It actually peaked last weekend, about a week ago, about 6 days ago, and has been coming down since then, although it's still, dangerously fast and high. If you're walking on any of those trails along Blacksmith Fork or Logan River, keep an eye on your dogs. I actually personally witnessed a close call just a few days ago out, running my dogs on some of the trails around the river. There were some other folks on the other side, and they were tossing sticks into a slow-moving eddying pool on the side of the fast-moving river for their dog.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, and one of the sticks went out a little further and started to head down in the fast stream. The dog went after it. Someone stepped into this thigh-deep water and grabbed the dog. Otherwise, that dog would have been gone. Yeah, so and I couldn't do a thing. I literally just kind of had to turn my head. But then I looked back and saw him, pulling the dog out. And, be careful out there. But again, this is to be taken seriously. The river and the banks of the river closed at most for the next 30 days. It can be rescinded before then by the mayor to all recreational activity here in Logan. And at the start of the week, Logan River was recorded as reaching 5.2 feet, which is considered the river's minor flood stage. And as of, Thursday, as of today, the river depth is now reported at 5.44 feet. So it's gone up. And they're believing that as it nears peak, either, sometime between today and Sunday, roughly, it could reach 6 feet. And that would be considered major flood stage. So to translate this into non-river technical speak, it's going to get a little floodier out there. That's a word I just made up. So in Logan City, if you haven't made preparations for flood and it does flood near your home in a regular year, the window is really closing on that. By 7 to 10 days from now, things could look very different and a lot better, but we're not to the worst of it yet. So this is interesting as well. In the Cache Valley Daily story about all of this, Utah's, we know record-breaking snow levels through the 22-23 winter, but according to the city's emergency declaration, the snowpack in the mountains surrounding Cache Valley is close to and in some places exceeding 150% of normal. One last update on this. A lot of people asking, what this means as far as Tony Grove Road opening.
Not anytime soon, probably.
Yeah, Forest Service says they still cannot even really get up there to fully assess the runoff damage they know is likely to be there. So they're only assuming that most of the road's still there at this point. If it is, great. As soon as the snow melts off, it could be open by mid part of July, maybe. But if there is need for extensive repairs, which I would say is probably likely, you could see one of the latest openings of the Tony Grove Road in a generation, and there's not much we can do about that. It's all just up to snow melt at this point. So there you have it. A little update on the rivers and the snowpack. But again, Logan City in an emergency declaration saying Logan River, its banks off limits at this point for public safety reasons to all recreational activity. The executive order would have to be renewed in 30 days, but can be rescinded earlier. So if by this time next weekend we see the river coming down quite a bit, unlikely, but could happen, it might be rescinded. But for now, we're still, the guess is we're not at peak yet, and likely to reach, we're at minor flood stage now, likely to reach major flood stage just in the next few days. Story at CacheValleyDaily.com, and we'll be back after more of the local headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:38, and the news is brought to you by U&I Furniture. Hiram Martin, a student from Mount Logan Middle School, has won a $500 scholarship savings account through Zions Bank's Pays for A's program. Zions Bank surprised Martin with the exciting news at the Logan Pioneer branch where the regional drawing took place. Pays for A's is a program that rewards local students for their academic achievements, and Martin qualified for the drawing by bringing his report card to Zions Bank, earning compensation for each A grade he received. Pays for A's has been running for the past 20 years and has rewarded numerous students in Utah and Idaho for their dedication to academics. There are Utah Jazz who are old enough to drive who have never seen the Delta Center on the home court until Thursday, that is. It may be odd to some Utahns to think about just how long it's been since the Delta Center moniker adorned the arena positioned at the southwest corner of John Stockton Drive and Carl Malone Drive intersection in Salt Lake City. In the time since the Atlanta-based airline last had naming rights to the Utah Jazz home court, the nation has elected 3 presidents. The iPhone shuttled in a new era of technology, and the world survived when the ancient Mayan calendar reached the end of its last backton in 2012. On Thursday, after being absent for all those major events and more since naming rights were transferred in 2006, work on the Delta Center name began. Crews removed the previous Vivint Arena from the exterior of the venue at the beginning of the month, and the 4 facades have stood nameless for just over 3 weeks. Several homes were evacuated after a stolen car driven by a 15-year-old struck and killed a man before hitting the side of a house and rupturing a gas line in West Valley City. This happened around 8:30 last night along Lehigh Drive in West Valley. According to Roxanne Vanuku with West Valley City Police, an officer spotted a stolen vehicle driving in the area. The officer, driving an unmarked car, began to follow the vehicle, clarifying that it was not a pursuit. The stolen vehicle turned onto 3100 South and headed westbound, eventually entering a neighborhood. In the area of Lehigh Drive, the stolen vehicle came to a stop. At this point, Vanuku said 3 individuals exited the car, including 2 passengers and the driver. As police started arriving, the driver got back into the vehicle. According to Vanuku, the 2 passengers fled but were later taken into custody by police. In response to the driver re-entering the car, another officer allegedly deployed spike strips into the street. The suspect tried to flee the scene, running over the spike strips, and collided with a police vehicle. Vanuku said the driver then lost control, continued through a yard of one home, crashed through a chain-link fence into a second yard, and ultimately smashed into the front room of that house, causing extensive damage. The 24-year-old man who was standing in front of the second house was struck by the stolen car and died as a result of the collision. The stolen vehicle then proceeded through a third fence into another yard and collided with another vehicle before finally coming to a stop. Vanuku confirmed the suspects involved in the incident have been identified as a 17-year-old male, a 16-year-old female, and a 15-year-old driver. KVNU News Time is 4:42.
Are you a hot sleeper? Warm summer nights can make it hard to sleep. UNI Furniture recommends sleeping cooler with a gel memory foam mattress. UNI features a copper-infused gel memory foam that helps with coolness and circulation. It moves better with you, giving you the best night's sleep. UNI is also the home of Chair Heaven. There's a reason they sell so many chairs, including recliners. Father's Day is coming up. Plan to take care of Dad with a new recliner. For over 90 years, there's always been a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
4 additional days to get a deal. A new assessment from Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the government will hit a debt ceiling June 5th, not June 1st. This in a letter to Congress. Reports of progress in the debt limit negotiations, even as many lawmakers are heading home on their holiday recess. ABC's Jay O'Brien.
We do know that the 2 sides continue to talk. They're trying to hash out a deal, but certainly we do not have the product of one now, and the clock is very much ticking here.
Forcing a rare Saturday session of the Republican-led Texas State House that may vote to impeach him and may vote to suspend his tenure for various allegations of bribery, unfitness for office, and abuse of public trust. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. He's calling on his supporters to protest. President Biden welcoming the 2023 NCAA men's basketball champions, UConn Huskies, to the White House.
This team is proof that there's no quit in UConn, just like there's no quit in America. None.
Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
KVNU weather for tonight. Slight chance of showers and thunderstorms this evening, then partly cloudy after midnight, low in the mid-40s. Chance of rain showers, slight chance of thunder in the morning tomorrow. Rain showers likely, and a chance of thunderstorms in the afternoon, but partly sunny skies, high around 70. Still a threat of showers, but less of a chance Saturday night, 30% chance, 40% chance on Sunday, 30% on Memorial Day, Monday. 74 has been our high at 67 right now at KVNU. Bugs and all their creepy friends want to come inside. Call Logan Extermination to come spray your foundation and keep them out for only $55 per month. Call 435-752-8450. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Branch Office Administrator Whitney Heyer bringing you the daily financial market report on behalf of financial advisor Mike Arnold and Edward Jones. Equity markets closed at a new high for the year on reports that lawmakers are making progress on a deal to raise the debt ceiling. Economic data released this morning continued to point to a resilient economy. The Fed's preferred measure of inflation, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, rose faster than expected in April. The core PCE index increased 0.4% from the prior month and 4.7% from last year. We don't see last month's re-acceleration in prices altering the downward trend in inflation, but the lingering pressures, combined with the strong consumer spending, pose a challenge for the Fed. Fed officials appear to be split on whether they should pause to evaluate the impact of prior rate hikes or continue to tighten policy to ensure that inflation returns to target. After this week, markets are now pricing an almost 60% chance of at least one hike by the July meeting. Today's equities closed higher. The Dow closed up 329 points at 33,093. The Nasdaq closed up 278 points at 12,976. The S&P 500 closed up 54 points at 4,205. And in the bond market, 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 3.8%. The price of crude oil was up 99 cents at $72.82, and the spot price of gold was up $2.60 at $1,946.30. In stocks of local interest, Autoliv was up $2.48 at 84.17. Chevron was down 48 cents at 154.08. Dominion Energy was down 57 cents at 49.86. Home Depot was up $6.08 at 292.83. Kroger was down $1.59 at 47.31. Lowe's was up $5.48 at 206.52. McDonald's was up 52 cents at 286.04. Microsoft was up $6.97 at 332.89. Nucor was up $1.45 at 136.14. Philip Morris was up 8 cents at 90.84. And Walmart finished up 26 cents at $146.42. This has been today's financial market report brought to you on behalf of Edward Jones, member SIPC, and financial advisor Mike Arnold, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 135 North Main, Suite 102 in downtown Logan. If you'd like additional information, please contact our branch office at 753-2915.
Welcome to Everyone's Metal Store, home to tons of metal products for the DIYer or experienced pros, with a sales staff ready to assist with any type of metal question. Palmer's Metal Mart in Logan is your metal store, no matter the size of your project. With one of the state's best selections of metal products under one roof, you will love the price and selection at Metal Mart. For almost 30 years, for projects big or small, customers have found their home for metal products and extraordinary service to be at Metal Mart. No matter your knowledge of metal products, Metal Mart is here to serve. Give us a call or come into our store in Logan and see why we're everyone's metal store. If you need metal roofing, tubing or pipe, sheet metal, angle iron, purlins or rebar, call Palmer's Metal Mart today. When it comes to metal, just remember Palmer's Metal Mart, everyone's metal store. It's that simple. Visit us online at palmersmetalmart.com or in Logan, just east of the airport. Steel, service, and savings. See you soon.
Coming up, George Washington's handwritten declaration of Thanksgiving as a national holiday is going up for auction, and you will not believe for how much. Before we get to that, though, this has been rattling around the back of my brain forever, and it's now a more than a week old story at CashValleyDaily.com, but I thought it was the coolest story. All of us as kids have our thing, right? You know, our thing that we're the most interested in. For me, I had a bit of an obsession for a lot longer, 6th grade, than most kids do with Star Wars action figures and collecting them. And I had a cousin who was super, I never understood this, super into like dump trucks and just being around actual dump trucks at a very young age. And so every kid has this thing that grabs their imagination and gets them excited. And this story at CacheValleyDaily.com from May 13th. Again, I that day, I don't remember what happened. I think we had back-to-back guests. We couldn't talk about it. And then I just never found time for it. But I wanted to throw it out there still for people to check out. It's so a Hiram boy with a neurological disease had a wish. He had something that he really wanted to experience. And that was being arrested. He wanted to be this 12-year-old boy named Fippen. They call him Fip Tingy out of Hiram here in Cache Valley. I'm not joking. This is something he really wanted to have happen. His parents said that he had always had this fascination with law enforcement, with cops, even firefighters, and public servants in that world. Basically, he likes to see badges. He would often, I assume Halloween time, or maybe just for fun on a random Tuesday, he liked to dress up as police. He would tell neighbors he would remind neighbors to follow the law, and he said, I would have this jacket on that says search and rescue, and I'd be out trying to keep everyone safe. Just a cool story. And again, just, something that has captured this 12-year-old boy's imagination. And several weeks ago, Utah Highway Patrol Sergeant Cade Brenchley heard about this. And so he started to make some phone calls and finally got in touch with Sergeant Virgil Hutton, who assists in overseeing the Cache County Jail. And so then they roped in Sheriff Chad Jensen, and Sheriff Jensen signed off on it, said absolutely. And so Brenchley and Hutton started working out kind of a staged plan for how they could actually get Fip arrested. And this is what the little boy wanted. So I absolutely love this just because it's not something you hear. So second week of May on a Wednesday, Brenchley actually drove to Tingy's house, and they worked out with the parents and everyone involved a way for the boy to be arrested, driven to the jail in the back seat of the trooper's vehicle. Tingy's parents, uncle, and grandmother rode along for support, so he wasn't alone. At the jail, Fip, who was in a wheelchair, was taken inside and booked, fingerprinted, all of that. And there's photos to go along with it of this 12-year-old boy just beaming, huge smile as they fingerprint him at the jail. And then they gave him a tour. They gave him a tour of the what they call the pod control areas, the booking area itself, of course. He got to learn how deputies do their job within the jail, guarding inmates, more keeping them safe, keeping other deputies safe. He was handcuffed. He got to wear handcuffs. Tingy said
that
for the
probably
first
made
time.
him smile as well.
Hey, honestly, the pictures are just, it's really cool. This 12-year-old boy, huge smile on his face in every picture, from the handcuffs to the fingerprinting to the tours of the jail. And Brenchley told Will Philwright at CacheValleyDaily.com, where you can read this story, that throughout the whole tour, Tingy was all smiles, and they would introduce himself to each deputy, shake the deputy's hand, and tell them that he was there because he'd been arrested. Like, he was announcing this proudly to every deputy. Hi, I was arrested. And got to meet Sheriff Chad Jensen. And the sheriff, by the way, gave the boy an official sheriff's hat and presented him with a sheriff's challenge coin. These are, sheriffs give these out nationwide. They're a little medallion with the sheriff's insignia on it, and collector's items, but oftentimes also to encourage people to do some good in their community. And Phipps said, after the tour and the arrest and the handcuffs and everything, he said it was really cool, but was a little scary. He said it was a good experience for me, but I learned that going to jail is not fun at all. So, what a cool story. Tingy has a syndrome called AGS, Aicardi-Goutieres syndrome, a neurological disease that impacts the brain, spinal cord, and immune system. And as a young child, he was able to run and jump and do all the things kids do. But in the last 4 years, he's lost some of the physical function of his limbs, and so he's in a wheelchair. And so he was toured around the. Honestly, you've got to see this. This 12-year-old boy, huge smile on his face, as they're fingerprinting him at the booking station there at the Cache County Jail after picking him up at his home. Handcuffing him, taking him to the jail in the back of a car, all things that he wanted to happen. This was a goal of Phipps, and just really cool. So hats off to Sergeant Cade Brenchley, Sergeant Hutton, Sheriff Jensen, everyone involved in this. An odd wish for a young child to be arrested and booked into the Cache County Jail, but hats off to them for making the wish happen, and you've got to see the photos. Check it out. Again, this story was first published back in mid-May, but it was something that we just kept getting shuffled out of the clock, and I wanted to make sure it got in there before the end of the month. So check it out, and please take a second to look at these photos because you'll never see anything like it. A 12-year-old boy being arrested, fingerprinted at the jail and more, and all smiles as it's happening. We'll be back right after this.
My hearing started to go right around the same time my wife started naming off all the upgrades she wanted done on the house. I figured it was selective hearing. To be honest, I was actually pretty upset when it was suggested that I might need hearing aids, but ultimately I knew it was time for a change.
At Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology, we can help you regain the confidence that you're hearing life the way it was meant to be heard.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Visit CacheHearing.com for details.
Can you imagine what it would be like if you only had one option to choose from when buying a new car? Or while grocery shopping, you could only choose one cereal? Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Hi, this is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. This may be the problem with your insurance. You're settling for one company's rates with no other options available. Auto Owners Insurance and Quality First will give you options. Quality First Insurance, 752-0101. For more information, go to q1ins.com.
With so much financial uncertainty, are you wondering if your retirement savings will last? The market's ups and downs can keep you guessing, especially if you're approaching retirement or considering it. Your Edward Jones financial advisor can help. If you have more questions than answers about what's next, they can work with you to help ensure you're prepared for the future. After all, retirement isn't the end of the road, it's a new beginning. Call one of the 7 branch locations in Cache Valley or go to edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
That's it for hour 1 of today's show. Coming up in hour 2, Andy Morgan will be with us for the People movie show. We'll be talking about Disney's Little Mermaid. This is a kind of partly animation, part live action. Disney's been doing this with a lot of their animated originals, and so kind of a live action with some animation, CGI, of course. It's underwater version of Little Mermaid. We'll also be talking about how the writer's strike might affect holiday movie season. Most of what's scheduled for release, this summer and early fall was done before, the writer's strike began. But it may actually be affecting some of the films that were in filming completion or headed into post-production where there was need for punch-up or some rewrites and refilming. So holiday movie season might be impacted by this. What that might mean for both the box office but also your holiday entertainment. All of that coming up on the For the People movie show right after this here on KVNU Logan.
KVNU, Logan, 610 AM and 102.1 FM. The power of information.